Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Hey, what is up, YouTube? It is Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Jeff. And man, I always use this word. I use the word legend. Probably a little too much, but this guy right here, my guest today, is an absolute legend of the Florida and American metal scene, I believe. We are joined today by Nasty Ronnie of Nasty Stavage. Milton hitting and destroying Florida. We hope not, but we hope not. But Nasty Ronnie, how are you, sir? Good to talk to you, man. Thanks for joining me today.
Man, I can't thank you enough. And how impressive was that opening, man, of gas masks and hand grenades, brother.
Like that,
it's really, really cool to be here today. I can't thank you enough for having me.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, that song I wrote with a guy named Andrew Lyles about 2 years ago. I play, but I'm not very good at the whole internet or the computer recording thing. I'm kind of old and dumb. And so he helped me record that thing. And then a good friend of mine helped me put together all those little clips and vignettes and all the natural disasters. And it works out great. I appreciate you saying that. So, dude, really, you are a legend, man. And you hear that term a lot. And it probably sounds cool and then kind of funny at the same sort of time, right? It's kind of a weird thing, right? When you hear that word.
Well, man, it's not me saying it; it's other people. So
True.
If I've impressed people enough to say that, or it's really a body of work, or your drive, determination, or it could be the way you give other people value, or the way you do your business. You got to earn that kind of shit. So to earn something means a lot, and I'm just more worried about tomorrow than everything I've done in the past, because that's all we have is the now and tomorrow. But it's an honor, man. But it's a body of work as well. And winners win, leaders lead, losers lose, and followers follow. And yeah. I'd rather fly with eagles, brother, than deal with turkeys. So I've always been in that type of person, just a positive, make it happen. And when the green flag drops, the bullshit stops. So there's no bullshit when you're just true and real. Things happen, and like I said, the body of work speaks for itself. But you have to make it all happen yourself. So I'm honored, man. I've been through a lot. 40 years of Nasty Savage, man.
Yeah,
I'm
crazy,
62.
Man.
I'm 62, and I'm keeping it true.
I tell you what, man. I'm 58, almost 59. So we're in the same. We're in the same generation. We grew up around the same time, a lot of the same influences and stuff. And I look at what you've done live. And granted, man, you're now, speaking of which, you just came back from Keep It True, actually, this past weekend, right?
Yeah, it was an amazing time because this whole new album was based around getting it done in time for Keep It True, because Frank from FHM Records, a friend of mine, and he signed Siren and all that from over here. And that's why I just said, Frank, let's just do an album, man, because me and him ride motorcycles when he comes to Florida. And he's from Germany. He's got a house down in Cape Coral. So he comes up here, and I take him riding because I'm in the biker community. I produced Born to Ride television. I did it for 28 years. I actually produced 1,340 Born to Ride TV episodes. And I currently published the magazine. This is my 250th edition of Born to Ride magazine. Wow. So anyway, so I had that connection with Frank, and that's why when I said, Frank, let's just do a Nasty Savage album, he came to ride. He spent the night. The next morning I made him a big breakfast, and that's what I said. I said, dude, let's just do a Nasty Savage album. I don't want to shop demos. Let's just do it. And he said, oh, Ron, that's a good idea. And we worked a deal, and it was October of last year, and now it's October of this year. And between that and now, we did the album, we did the deal. We pressed it. It went to the, it got printed, the vinyls. Everything was in time to go to Keep It True. And it was the whole thing to celebrate 40 years of Nasty Savage.
Yeah, let me share this. Of course, I'm a little confused about something that I think you'll be able to clear up here. I've seen two different dates for release. I saw 10/4, which was this past Friday, and then I see 10/10. Is that a Euro versus US distribution thing as far as the new album release date, or what?
Well, it was really the one at I guess the 4, the 10/3 or 4 was Keep It True, because he was set up there and they had to have everything done so they could be released then. And then now the official thing is going to be like tomorrow. It's like I was born in a crossfire hurricane. It's like Jumpin' Jack Flash of the Rolling Stones thing. The album's going to debut and come out officially with this hurricane coming, so
tomorrow,
it's pretty crazy. And actually tomorrow's going to be released the next lyric video, which is going to be Witch's Sabbath. We did Brainwasher
and Schizoid Platform. Witch's Sabbath, my favorite album.
And then that's going to be released tomorrow. So a lot of cool timing involved.
Cool.
But yeah, we're under a timeline, man, and we got it all done. And as far as America, I don't know if he really has big distribution yet. Mm-hmm. So they can go to FHM Records, Google that, and they could order it there. It's going to be shipping whatever from Germany, but there's some really cool picture discs. There's DVDs. I mean, there's CDs, and they got a few colored vinyl options as well. But we're working on some distribution here in America. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully, he'll lock it all down.
Okay, so we should step back for a sec here. The purpose of today's visit with me is to talk a little bit about the history, about the recording of the new album, and it's the first Nasty Savage album in 20 years, 2 decades, man. Last one was Psycho Psycho in 2004, and as you mentioned, FHM Records is the label that you're on. It is a German label. And then you played Keep It True, and some fellow Tampaans. What do you call your guys? Tampa Bay Aryans, something like that?
I'm from Brandon, where it all began, in Tampa Bay. So Tampa, heavy metal capital of the world at one time. Maybe it might still be.
But you were playing with some of my favorite guys from that area, and I think you can see back here maybe. Can you see behind me there?
I don't know. The pictures are really small.
Okay. Crimson Glory Transcendence hanging on the wall back there.
Oh yeah, I saw those guys Saturday night. Well, I didn't see him. Yeah, I didn't see him Saturday because we were already flying back. We played Friday and got the hell out of there.
I talked to Ben yesterday. He's still in Frankfurt right now. So
yeah, they're playing some other shows, but those guys really, really killed it. It was great to have the legends back. That name, Crimson Glory, brought so much notoriety and class to heavy metal and to the flying that Florida flag.
Well, let's start there. Let's go back. I'm going to get rid of this picture for a minute here. We'll come back to it before long. But let's go back a little bit and talk some Nasty Savage history. I know you've done this many, many times in the past, but if you would, for my listening audience, why don't you tell us a little bit about how that Tampa metal scene developed, and you and probably Savatage Avatar were kind of the two quintessential firsts, maybe, or were you? Fill me in on that.
There was a band called Argus, and Argus was they played clubs and stuff, but they would at the time, before I was ever in a band, we were collecting records, and I was collecting this one guy, a friend of mine, had a record store, and he'd get all the new imports every week, and all the 7-inch, 12-inch import British new wave heavy metal. If it was a Priest 12-inch or a Maiden, and then it was Holocaust and Angel Witch and Witchfinder General, Diamond Head, and then it was Venom. Venom just came out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking crazy, man. It was like Black Sabbath. Then we had Venom. It showed us that it doesn't matter what you do. You can sing any way you want. And this was this black metal, man. And all of a sudden then Possessed happened. And, and then the death metal stuff came in. But before all that, I was just getting into new wave heavy metal, of British metal, and all the imports and stuff. So I was inspired. So we'd go to Argus and go, dude, play this, and they were playing like Storm Child and Angel Witch, and we were playing. He was playing. They didn't play Holocaust, but Nasty Savage did. So anyway, we were inspired by those guys, and we'd go to them and we'd go slam dance and headbang and thrash, And then Savatage was Avatar, and they came on the scene. And then we started getting into Savatage. And I mean, we were like thrashing. We'd destroy the bars, man, because we were like metal when it was not around anymore.
Right.
There was another band called Vengeance with Guy Paletti, and they were playing this heavy stuff. So then one day, a friend of mine said, hey, I know these guys are looking for a singer. Would you think of that? And I was singing shit in my room, and he heard me one day on a rock box to rock box, and singing in the middle. So I said, shit, yeah, why not? And I was with my wife, she was my girlfriend back then. We were in a little Pinto, and I said, hey, pull over here. I'm going to try for this band. And I went in there, and I played. There was in Brandon, Florida, and I sang 2 Iron Maiden songs, Paul Di'Anno style, because that's where it was back then.
Sure.
And I never heard anything back from the guys. So I was like, fuck. I was at a keg party about a week later, and I saw them there. It was Ben Meyer, Craig Huffman, and Fred Dregeshin. It was the 3 guys. So I went up to him. I said, hey, man, you want me to be your singer or not? And they go, yeah, we do. I go, all right, I'll be over Monday. I'll be over Monday with a game plan. So I go over there Monday. It's like the jam house, all these people in there. I go, everybody out of the house except the band. And they're like, well, who the hell is this guy? I said, no, everybody out. So they all got out. I said, okay, sit down. The name of the band is Nasty Savage. I'm Nasty Ronnie, the wildest singer ever. And we're going to put our money together. I said, we're going to put our money together, and we're going to do a 4-song demo tape called Wage of Mayhem. And within 1 year, we're going to be signed. We're going to be getting fan mail from all over, and we're going to be touring. Is everybody in? And they said, oh, hell yeah. And that's where it began, man. And I knew if I was going to do this, I was going to lead the way to anything I could do to possibly create mayhem, marketing, and promotions. And that's what we did. I got the demo in my hands. I just started licking stamps and sending them out everywhere possible. And then I went to the Brandon, and we started getting fan mail and started getting press. So I said, let me go to the Brandon News. And I went there and I knocked on the door. I went inside. I said, look, I'm in this band, Nasty Savage. We're hometown boys, and we're getting fan mail from Europe and South America. And they go, you are? I go, yeah. Why don't you do a story? So we go, hell yeah, let's do a story. So the newspaper guys sent playing Ruby's Pub, right? Ruby's Pub, a famous place that we used to play. They bring the photographers out there, and they're used to taking pictures of maybe a ribbon cutting or gold shovels in the ground, a check presentation. And now they're inside this hot ass club with just steam rolling everywhere because there's so many metalheads thrashing and headbanging and stage diving. It was like nitroglycerin, man. It was like mayhem.
Ronnie, what year is this? This is
like 82, 83.
Okay.
So it's like you could feel it, man. And so me being the marketing dude I am, is after we're done, I go and talk to the photographer. They go, holy shit, this is so cool, man. This is awesome. I said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow, Sunday? Can we go to your office and develop some of these pictures? And we'd open up with a key. I'd sit in there for like 5 hours developing photos from negatives. Would put them into the water and make the pictures happen. And I'd get like a stack, man, like a 5-inch, 6-inch stack of photos. And I just kept going, do another one. How about this one? And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing because I know what I needed. And when I got all that stuff, then it was easy for me to send all these killer photos with a bio and a demo to all these magazines all over the world. And then about 2 months later, I get these packages and I'm on the cover of all these metal magazines. You just got to provide. I'm a publisher now. I know what I need to make a story. I knew that back then, that if I provide this guy with something, he's going to use it and be very excited and then tell everybody where they can get the demo. So we ended up selling like 3,000 demo tapes. And, then I got a list of every single metal radio station, radio show, college station, underground, hundreds. And every week I would take another stack, a bag full to radio stations, media, and then I'd find pen pals. People just would write me and go, I don't have no money, but can you send me a demo? And instead of going, fuck that guy, I would send it to him, because I knew if he's a metalhead, if he's a metalhead in Toms River, New Jersey, and I sent him something for free with a bunch of extra cool stuff in there, autograph, pictures, buttons, he was going to show all his guys that he hangs out with. Exactly. Next thing you know, I get about 3 to 5 more orders from Toms River. It just multiplied. Yeah. And, it's like that around the world doing that shit. And that's how we got established. But so we're playing these shows, and there's no one that we're following, man. There's no, like, we're doing keg parties in the field, or we're getting a gig at the store. Like Ruby's Pub, they used to give us the door. I worked that deal with them. I said, look, don't pay us. We'll take the door. And we'd pack it, and we'd end up making like $1,800 when we first started, and we'd split it all up. Yeah. Well, a lot of bands today, they don't understand that you have to bring value. You have to show a record company you can pack a place in your hometown, that you can have some longevity, that you have an impact on something. Right, you can't just sit there and wait for it to happen to you. You got to make things happen. And that's what we did. And then one day I'm sitting at home at my mom's house, and she says, Ron, there's 2 boys at the door. They want to talk to you. And I go, okay. So I go to the door, 2 kids on bicycles, banana seats, Schwinn with the high handlebars, sissy bar. So I go, hey, what's going on? They go, are you Nasty Ronnie? I go, yeah. And they go, well, hell, we're John and Donald Tardy. We want to know how to start a band. These 2 kids on bicycles. Yeah, crazy, I go, dude, you guys are brilliant, man. You're smart. There's no Google Maps. They found my house. They knocked on my door. They had the balls, but they came to the person who was marketing metal. So I said, hell, let's get in my Chevelle. I had a 70 Chevelle. I said, let's go to Lithia Springs, man. We're going to throw the Frisbee for about 5 hours, and I'll tune you guys up, and I'll tell you everything I know, because I appreciate what you guys are doing, your vision. So then, boom, the rest is history. About 10 years later, they do this video called 10,000 Ways to Die. They feature Nasty Savage in an animated video, and now it has over 7 million views. So that helped turn us on to new people who might have never even known about us. Then they did a book, and then the book, they did a whole chapter about Nasty Savage. So, it was just that. And then all of a sudden, these other bands started popping up. Deicide, Morbid Angel, Death. Chuck and Rick and Cam used to come to our shows before they were even in Mantis, and they'd headbang.
Wow.
And there's pictures of them wearing Savage shirts, but Morbid Angel, Deicide, Atheist, Kelly, and so many other bands that they were watching us, and then they were going grabbing guitars and shit. They were buying drum sets. So what happened? They had to be more extreme, because these were sick dudes that wanted to take it extreme after seeing what we were doing. And I'm really proud that we might have held the first wave, but that second wave, man, hit like a sledgehammer.
Hell
and
yeah.
When we were breaking out, there was Anthrax in New York and Overkill, Slayer in California with Metallica and Exodus. And then here we come out of the swamplands of Florida. People were going, who are these guys, But we just had to blaze our own trail. And one day I used to go to work, and I'd get all these packages at my house, and I'd call my mom. I'd say, hey, Mom, what did I get in the mail today? What did I get? How many orders? She goes, oh, you got about 7 or 8 here, and there's one from Brazil package. Must be a magazine. She goes, oh, here's one from Metal Blade Records. It was a letter from Brian Slagle. No shit. And he said, dude, we want to put you on Metal Massacre 6. And then we want to follow up with a whole album of your own. He goes, you've been creating a lot of hype. And a matter of fact, a radio station from Texas, Kiss Radio, Mark Anthony sent me a reel-to-reel of your demo. He said, you need to sign these guys. And so we were off to the races after that, man.
Well, I think, in talking with Kelly and some of the guys I know, you mentioned the obituary book. It was done by David Gelke, who also did the Scott Burns book recently, and in talking, I had Scott on 3 months ago, 2 months ago to talk about the Scott Burns book, and he brought you up too. When I brought that word of legend up, it's like when I talk to these guys, they talk about Nasty Savage and Avatar / Savatage as the OG mythical figures of Tampa metal. You know, I mean, you guys are so widely regarded as the guys that really got it going there. But I believe too, I think you'd agree with this, that one of the other, because that was around 83 for you guys, but like about a year or two prior to that, another very important key or cog in the wheel, if you will, was Morris Sound Studios, right? Can you speak to that a little bit about what that meant to the scene?
Well, I mean, that's where it all started for us, man. We went in the studio in Tampa, Morris Sound Recording, and Metal Blade gave us the budget, and we produced it ourselves. And we had a good ear and everything, but Jim Morris is just an amazing engineer, you know, and he's not only an engineer, he's like a producer, and he's well aware of your time and situation and bringing out a quality product. So, you know, after we recorded our album there, Savatage did before us with Dan Johnson and Par Records and all that. And then we recorded there. And after we put an impact with that first album, I mean, it was so original. We didn't know anything but to create this shit. And, you know, we did the album, and all of a sudden Creator, Destruction, Sepultura, you know, and Agent Steel, and people were coming in from international waters, and then local, they were coming from California just to record there.
Right.
And, you know, there was a reason for that. And then that's about the time when Sepultura was doing some more stuff, and Jim Morris was supposed to do their album. It was around Christmas time, and it was going to be, so Scott stepped in and did that, and that was his embarking into, you know,
the big leagues,
being a death metal producer that became legendary. Everybody worked with him, but, you know, it was because he was a student of Jim Morris, and he was smart enough to handle his own business, and, you know, became historic. And when we recorded, Scott was there, but he was the guy that was like changing tapes or getting coffee, and, you know, Jim's assistant. So it's like the student, the teacher, and everything else falls into place if you play your cards right. And so it was time to do this record 20 years after Psycho Psycho. I had to talk to Jim Morris. And I said, dude, I want it. And he goes, dude, I want this here, because I've recorded now in all of 3 of their different locations. But I knew that if we had Jim, we were going to get a good product. So I had my guys all get together and come in and meet Jim and just have a little talk session just to get them warmed up to the guy that they're going to work with, and see how, you know, just to get them focused. And like Jim, our drummer, Jim Coker, he was on a few albums with Brutality that Jim did. So it was an exciting time getting back, and I had a plan, because here I'm standing on this island all alone with this flag of Nasty Savage. Right. I'm the only original member. You know, I'm the only guy. My last album, there was 4 other guys there. So I had to come up with a few things, because I didn't want people to say, oh, it's not really Nasty Savage without this guy or that guy. You know, it's not really. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Kind of shit. Right. Yeah. So I said, we're going to go back to Morris Sound, where it all began. I know we're in good hands. Did a deal with Jim. Then I said, I've got to get Fred Dregeshin, our original bass player, in here. So I got him to send us a song that was going to be the Jeopardy Room song, but he got it to us too late. We already wrote it. So I used a piece of the song he gave us as the intro to Invocations, and that brought the mastermind from day one, Fred Dregeshin, on board. So now I had 2 elements, Morris Sound, Fred Dregeshin. Next thing I had to do is, man, what am I doing for the cover of this shit? I said, man, I'm not going to go with some artificial stuff, art AI, where, you know, flaming skulls and devil faces, a bunch of flames and fire.
Same old shit.
I said, I'm not doing that. It's too generic. Vandekar. Oh, I got to get with Vandekar, man.
Hold up, Ronnie. Hold up. Stop there, man.
All right.
You have to tell me about this Vandekar guy. You have to go back to the beginning. Take a tangent here. I got to hear about this guy, because this sounds fascinating.
I'll interject it right now.
All right.
So I had to go back to Vandekar, and I said, well, shit, Vandekar's been dead for 35 years. What am I going to do? So I started Googling and messaging, and all of a sudden I get a message back and a phone number. I call the guy, and it's Vandekar's grandson, and he lives in the house that Vandekar had with the gargoyle on the roof, the iron gates, and all those statues in the yard, and they're all overgrown now. And he said, yeah, man, I know who you are. Yeah, you could come. Yeah, come on out, man. Go ahead. Come on out. You can get whatever you want. So I said, do you have some canvas of Vandekar's? He said, yeah, I do. So go back 25, 30 years. Friends of mine lived across the street, and I worked for their company, AFAB. They knew Vandekar, and they used to go out there all the time. And he had about 200 Vandekar paintings. He always told me about this artist, Vandekar. He's a warlock. He's a marketing guy. He's like Picasso and Van Gogh mixture, but with more marketing senses, from Miami. So I go up and meet this guy, and we kind of hit it off right from the get-go. And he's just a hard-working Renaissance man, you know, and he was like, yeah, I'm 100 years old and all this shit. I was in the Civil War.
Holy shit.
He was just taking us on this trip, you know, the marketing thing. And he'd take us through the yard and show us stuff, and he'd give me gifts. And I started going there once in a while. And every time I'd go there, I'd bring him like a bottle of liquor and donuts. That's what he liked. You find what people like, and you give it, and then you get something in return. So he'd give me these statues and shit, some killer statues, different concrete things that he made. One of them was the Goat of Mendes. And when Slayer played one time, I was backstage with Tom Araya, and I gave it to him. I said, dude, this is a gift from Vandekar and me to you. He goes, oh, thank you, brother. So we went and played in LA, and we played at the Country Club with DRI. And then his brother was there, Tom's brother. And then Tom came up, and we were in the backstage, and he goes, this is the guy who gave me that Goat Mendes that's on my mantle in our living room. So he actually kept it, but that was something from Vandekar. And I just started going back to Vandekar's, and I said, dude, I want you to paint an album for us. And he did. He did Indulgence was the first one.
So he's the artist that did Indulgence then. Was he like this mythical figure down in that area as far as I guess an eccentric artist? Is that who he was? Because I'd never heard that name until I saw you talking about him. Who was he?
Yeah, he was like an underground artist. You know, all artists are in their own little private Idaho, and they get their own little following. And there was no social media, but he had a lot of press and media as a warlock and evil. And he really wasn't. The people around his neighborhood, he was in Quail Hollow in the woods back there. But, you know, people would say he's Satan, all this shit. Yeah. But he just played all that off and sold a lot of paintings, I think, because of it, and got a kind of a following. So he did Indulgence, he did Abstract Reality, he did Penetration Point, and then for some reason we didn't go to Morrisound for Psycho, and I didn't use a Vandekar for that either. So, but now I said, I've got to bring that back, because that's going to give me an association. When people see that, they're going to register, oh, that's Nasty Savage. Right on. So I was breaking down the stereotypes of just Ron Galletti or Nasty Ronnie and nobody else. So now we had Vandekar, Fred, we had, you know, the artist, the painting, and it was like a really cool painting. And when I saw it, it was almost the same series as Indulgence. Yeah. You know, so I was like, dude, this is so killer. I knew it was it immediately. And there was only like two to choose from. His grandson was a painter. He tried to sell me on his stuff. I go, that's killer, brother, but I want this one.
But it ain't that. Yeah.
So then I had to do one more thing. When I was negotiating with Frank from FHM Records, when he stayed at my house that morning, I cooked him breakfast, and I told him that, hell, man, let's do a Nasty Savage album. He said, okay. I go, you know what? If we do this, I think I'm going to get John and Donald Hardy from Obituary to redo Witch's Sabbath with me, with our band. And he goes, oh, Ron, that's great. So I didn't even talk to those guys then, but I had the feeling I was going to be able to convince them to do this because of our history. So what I wanted to do is bring the past to the future, and I needed every damn bullet in every barrel possible to help fire it off. and one of them was getting Obituary in because they have a big following. They've already done stuff for us, and it was just something I had a goal because I wanted to do it with them, for them, and for me. It's like, help me, help you. So as soon as I called Donald, he goes, "Oh man, I'll play the drums, hell yeah!" And I didn't even think of him playing the drums. I just thought some backups. He goes, "Oh shit, yeah." He goes, "But you'll have to talk to John." These guys are strategic, man. They don't do this shit for anybody. They're very, very respectful, strategic businessmen. And then John agreed to do it, and then they supplied it to us on the timeline when we needed it between all these big tours they're doing. And they were happy to do it, man. And so that was the 4 elements that I needed to really shoot this thing off. Like,
I lost you there for a minute.
Can you hear me now?
You're back now. You blinked out for a sec.
Those were the 4 elements that I needed to shoot this thing off like a rocket ship. So I was really happy and content. I did have to tell Jim Coker that he's not playing drums on that song, and he went with it. I said, "Hey man, this is a smarter move. Don't worry about it."
Hey, real quick, John Verica, he's saying rip Curtis Beeson and Richard Bateman. John's wife, Sue, writes for Metal Maniacs, or wrote for Metal Maniacs back when Metal Maniacs were around. So, John, good to see you here, man. And yes, rip Curtis and Richard and quite a few other Nasty Savage guys. I think most people that would look back at a couple of observations. One, Nasty Savage was very different from what was coming out in the 80s, because most of the metal that was coming out in the 80s back then, Ronnie, was Rat, Motley Crue, that LA stuff, right? The LA hair metal stuff. You guys were not doing hair metal. You could hear kind of a hair metal track on the first album, but then you would hear like a total fucking thrasher, and then you would hear something semi sort of proggy. That first album is very varied. I mean, it's got influences of new wave of British heavy metal, and I guess that was just all your influences coming in, right? As you were writing that album.
Yeah, I mean, I owe it to the guys who played the music, and one of those guys was the Shark, Curtis Beeson. He was our drummer, and he was an amazing, amazing drummer, and he was just a one-of-a-kind guy. He wasn't a big guy, but, dude, he would take on a buzzsaw and give it the first 3 rounds, man. Curtis had your back, and Curtis lost his battle with a brain tumor, and he's been fighting for 12 years, and it just happened yesterday. He passed away, and he was in Jacksonville Hospital, and he lost his eyesight, and they did an operation on his brain, and they eased the tension, and he was able to see, and then all of a sudden he had complications and passed away. So, it's just heart-wrenching that we lost Curtis Beeson, and I do want to say that, and may he rest in peace, man. He'll never be forgotten, and all the fans with the pouring of emotion that they've helped on our Facebook pages and to his family is so important at this time, and it's just a big loss for not only Nasty Savage, but for mankind and for heavy metal at the same time.
Did you maintain once the band kind of, I don't want to say when it disbanded, I think that's the best way to put it. When the band kind of disbanded, did you maintain relationships with most of the original members or most of the guys, or how did that work out?
Off and on, off and on. We stopped in the 90s after we did the tour with DRI and Sick of It All. We did 60 shows in 65 days. It was amazing. Came back and we're just like, man, fuck this. It's just always getting kind of business-wise. It's just tired of being tired stuff. So Curtis's dad was actually our manager, Adrian Beeson, and it was just never really the business side. We were always like young and dumb. I thought, we had heart and we had fire, but man, the
energy to burn. Yeah, you had energy to burn, right? But
it was just hard. It was real hard. So we kind of broke up. We were done. And then a few years later, Ben was doing Lowbrow, and Ben was doing Gardy Lou, and he had this guy who was a big Nasty Savage fan just pouring money into him, doing records and stuff. So I got to meet him one day. I said, hey, we need to just do another Nasty Savage record. And he gave us a bunch of money to record it, and then he paid for the production. So, yeah, we wrote a whole album. David was living in Tennessee at the time, but we all came together, the original members, except Richard Bateman. It was the Penetration Point lineup. And Richard Bateman, and rest in peace to Richard too. What a monster bass player he was.
Right.
And then so we did that album, but after we were done with it, it just kind of faded away. There's no marketing or promotion or no gigs or nothing. So we just all disbanded then. And a couple of years later, I was getting some telephone calls and messages from promoters saying, man, we'd like to get Nasty Savage to play here or there. So I started to put a band back together, all new members. And then David Austin heard about it. He said, dude, I want to do it. So I had David Austin, and we picked up Jim Coker. Richard was still playing at the time with us, and Pete Sykes was the other guitarist. So, we started doing shows. We played probably 3 or 4 or 5 shows and wanted to do a demo. Richard passed away. He quit and then passed away. And then we picked up Scott Carino, who was in Fester and played with Death. Yeah. And so we did more shows and that. And we started to work on a demo tape, but we never finished it. We just lost interest. But we still did shows. So that's when I got with this guy, Frank, from FHM. And, about 5 years into that, Frank comes along, and I go, Frank, we just need to do a record. And he agreed to it. And we had a budget to do it. And then Scotty quit. He was like, yeah, man, I'm just not feeling it. He has a bad back and stuff. So he just said, the musical direction, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, he was gone. David Austin quit. We got this new guy. David Austin quit 2 years ago after we came back from Mexico City. No hard feelings at all. He just was done.
Yeah, done.
So we got Dave Orman, and now we had to start playing shows again. And we started playing all kinds of gigs and shows and, just keeping it going. By then we had a new song called The Six Finger that's on this album. Mm-hmm. And we were able to start playing that. So I was using that to say, look, we have new music. We're going to do something. We have energy here. And people were picking up on that with reviews and stuff. So that's another thing I told Frank. I said, we already have this song. We're going to do Witch of Sabbath. I'm going to get Obituary. Frank trusted us. He said, do it, man. I trust you. And then a year ago is October is when this all happened. And now this October, it's all done. We just went to Keep It True and debuted the album. So the timeline all worked out.
So I got a question for you here. Kelly, this is a Kelly question. He said, have you tell us about Desi Barth shows at Ruby's and Sunset Club?
The Dezo Itzavon Bartha, our bass player?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Ruby's pub shit. It was we played with Dezo after Fred was gone. We had to get a new bass player for the new album Indulgence. So we found Dezo. He did a tryout, and he was the guy they picked. I would never even go to the auditions. I would let Ben, Dave, and Curtis, figure out who they are most comfortable with jamming with, right. And I would just agree with it. So Dezo was the guy. He was a young kind of student kid and really smart, and he's from Hungary, So anyway, he was the only guy that had a credit card too. And we went on these little tours, and
I see what you did.
Me and him would go and get steaks and stuff, and he'd always buy history books and shit. But man, he was with us when we played those famous shows at Side Streets in Brandon, and and then we played with him, and he toured with us little tours here and there in Ruby's pub days. So yeah, I mean, it was just part of that historical part of Nasty Savage. Dezo was a killer bass player, but then after Indulgence, his dad told him, you either quit the band or you're out of the inheritance. And I think now he's some kind of college professor somewhere here in Florida, but he was really good friends with Lance and John Martin, who became our road guys. And John became a sound man after Tony Izzo, which is a real famous sound guy who toured with us and even went to World War III with us in the tour bus that we had, an old Greyhound. And we played with Destruction, Possessed, Voivod, and Celtic Frost and Nasty Savage. Wow. And we all went up there and did this gig, man. It was crazy. But that was with Fred back at the time. But Dezo was great, man. But after Dezo, we actually were doing the EP Abstract Reality. And in that time, we had to have another audition. I wasn't there at the audition. They picked Chris Morehouse, which was a great bass player. Later on, 10 years later, 20 years, I don't know how many years later, we were doing a benefit show for Curtis, because that's when his tumor started. So we were doing a benefit at the Crowbar, and Glenn Benton comes up to me and goes, "Hey, motherfucker." I go, "Hey, what's up, man?" He goes, "I'm pissed off at you." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Well, you didn't know it. I don't know if you know, but I tried out for Nasty Savage, and he tried out to be the bass player when we got Chris." I go, "Damn, Glenn, I didn't know that." I go, "Just think, if you would have been the bass player, Nasty Savage, you might never have burned that cross in your forehead, man. It might have changed the course of heavy metal, man." He just laughed and go, "Oh, fuck you."
Fucking hilarious. Hey, John has a really cool memory here. This will really test your memory.
All
I
right.
brought Nasty Savage after their Trenton, New Jersey gig at the City Gardens back to South Philly to crash at my friend Sal's house in 1990. The band followed us back in their tour van 34 fucking years ago, dude. Is that crazy?
Oh man, it was at Tom's River, New Jersey. I mean, I remember one time at Tom's River, we stayed there for because we had these gigs where you do a show and then you have 5 days off and then another show. I mean, who booked it like that? You know, we're so dumb. We just said, "Okay, let's go." Sure. So we stayed one time in Tom's River for about 5 days, and every day people were skipping school and coming to this house, and it was like the Party Central. The big tour bus was out front, but. Well, a lot of times, man, I thought it was so cool because that was the DRI tour. So we really weren't making a lot of money. So at the end of the show, I would say, "By the way, we're looking for a place to stay tonight if anybody has a place." And yeah, one time it would be South Central LA in a cold slab floor, concrete. Or we're in Houston, Texas, and the girl would go, "Well, my dad is in the oil industry, and he's in Indonesia, so you could come to my house," and it'd be some big old palace, gigantic house, with multi-million-dollar home, and we just raid the refrigerator, and I'd always sleep in the master bedroom, just like, and everybody would come over and party. So in that time in Philly. Sometimes it's hard to remember everybody, but the coolest thing about it was his name John?
John Verica.
Yeah, John, man. I'm sure it was the times of our life because we were hanging out with the people who appreciated us the most as our fans. And we always gave whatever we could to add value to that relationship. And it meant the world to us, man, to be able to share those moments with our fans because you'll come back to that town again, and then old John will hook us up again, or whatever we may need. It's an easy phone call, and then that was the magical times in the 80s and 90s of being down with the fans. And matter of fact, we still are.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the camaraderie, the unity of the metal community is really a special thing. Even today, it still is. It's a little bit different because the trust level might be a little bit more strained than it was maybe 40 years ago. But it's still that thing of like, man, we take care of each other. We really appreciate one another. And I still at almost 60 go out to shows fairly regularly. Hell, I just got to see Autopsy for the first time in my life about a month and a half ago. And I know Chris and Greg, and it was just so fucking cool to see those guys, meet them in person. And what I always find about metal people, and I think, Ronnie, you might be at the top of that food chain, is there is a respect for the fan. They don't, very rarely do those artists that are on stage take that shit for granted. They really realize, it's not, and I don't want to shit on other people, but, could you imagine Paul Stanley or Gene Simmons coming off the stage and hanging out with their fans? Probably not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did back in the 70s. Who knows? But now they wouldn't, of course. But I mean, I still talk to a lot of metal guys who are just the coolest fucking people in the world. And you very clearly are that because you've garnered a real reputation as being a super honest, straightforward, righteous dude. You know what I mean? Everything I've ever heard about you is this guy is like the real deal. He's legit in terms of how these aren't trumped up things that you're doing. You're not just saying this stuff. It's the real
Yeah, well,
you look at it.
Well, when you're out on the road, man, and anybody listening, and Kelly, I'm glad he's listening, man, because what a legend he is, and
Love
his
that.
his whole deal, what he's been able to accomplish, and now he's kicking ass more than ever, and he's saying, man, we need to do a tour together. Who knows what's going to happen?
That would be fun.
But when you're on the road, man, you just want to make it home alive and be safe, not be a fuck up, and people get into bands sometimes for the wrong reasons, and we always just try to take care of business. So when we're on the road and we're coming into a town, the fan is like our brothers and sisters, man. That's our outlet to get a steak or a place to stay or a hookup with what kind of thing we're looking for, or how to get to the gig or, those are your people, man. You're not on a different level. So I go back before I was in a band. We used to go to Lakeland Civic Center and see all those bands, Kiss, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Scorpions, Iron Maiden, and countless other bands. I remember me going and seeing Bad Company. We would hang out we'd go to the hotel and just wait for them to get there after the show. Yeah. And we'd run out there with our Kerrang magazine or the records. And man, they would stop and they would talk to us and they'd take us pictures and they'd sign our shit. And I thought, that's the coolest dude, man. He just took a moment to talk to me, and he made my day, man. I was like, that's why I have his posters on the wall and shit. So I said, if I'm ever in a band, I'm going to make other people's day. And I know how cool that. I remember the guys that didn't do it, and I'd say, what a dick, God damn. And I still respected their music, but I just thought, what a dick,
Yeah.
So I want people to go, you got to be like, if you're in a band, it's still like politics, man. You got to win those votes and not be fake about it, but you got to earn the vote. You got to earn respect. If you're in prison, you got to earn respect, brother. You got to give it to get it. Otherwise, you're going to be beat down. So it's the same thing with me with fans to this day. I'm going to make their day every chance I can. And it's nothing fake or phony. It's just being real and appreciative, because one thing, I'm on stage. Those people woke up that day and they came to this place. They made a conscious decision as a consumer. They came. They might buy a T-shirt, whatever, but they made a commitment to get gas and all the bullshit tolls. Pick up Jimmy, get off work early, dodge this. They were there, and I appreciate that 100%, man.
That's awesome, man. It's funny you mentioned Bad Company. I was in Baltimore over the weekend to see Amorphous and Dark Tranquility, and I went to a local record store, and I picked up an album that was my very first 8-track. You remember those, Ronnie? You remember the 8-tracks, man?
Hell yeah. I had one in my Chevelle.
Grabbed this over the weekend, man. I remember this is like one of my favorite, has my favorite Bad Company song on it, Burning Sky. Fucking love that track, but $3. I'm like, yeah, that's mine. I'm taking that home with me.
You know what's cool? What's cool about that's a great song. And I was doing this this Born to Ride, Day of the Dead, a big concert that we did, and we had Bad Company play. We had David Allen Coe, Foghat, Molly Hatchet.
Oh wow!
And we had Blackberry Smoke, and Joan Jett as well. Paul Rogers and Bad Company headlined it. And my son was with me, and back then he was probably about 11 or 12. And that song, Shooting Star, don't you know you are a shooting star? I said, son, listen to this song and never forget this moment that we're sharing right now. This song, never forget it. And it really meant a lot to me at the time, and it still does every time I hear it. But I wanted my son to associate that song with that moment that we just shared together for the rest of our lives. Don't ever forget it. And not too long ago, we were together in the cars and that song came on. He goes, Dad, that's that song, man.
That song,
it's what life's about, man. Music. And you were talking about the camaraderie about metal people. I mean, I'm in the biker community. I published the magazine Born to Ride and do the TV show. And you talk about a parallel of people who are down with each other. My kids grew up in the biker community, and they learned how someone would give the shirt off his back for someone else that needed it more, the last dollar in their pocket. And, that camaraderie with bikers is really close to heavy metal people too. And the coolest thing about it is, where are you at? You're in Pennsylvania, you said?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so you're in Pennsylvania. We're just in Germany. I'm down here in Florida waiting for the storm. But it's the music that the reason why we're talking, man. It doesn't matter what language, what color, what politics you like.
Yeah.
When you just focus on the music and the joy of what we're doing, I mean, it's an amazing thing. And it could take you places. It's taken us all around the world. And there's a line in the new album and Southern Fried Homicide that says, joy and sorrow today and tomorrow. What greater crime than the loss of time?
Great lyric. Great
make
lyric.
the most of it, man. I've got to throw some of them jabs in there, man. Rights and left, get them on the ropes and give them some knockout shit, man. And it's all about philosophical movement, and the rhythm will set you free.
Yeah. Think about this, Ronnie. You're 62, I'm 58. We're in the back half of our lives. We're in the, you know what I mean? We're in the third quarter, approaching the fourth quarter, both of us, right?
Yeah, I'd say we're in the fourth quarter,
we
man.
Probably are. I don't like to think about it, but
I know.
But you're right, man. I mean, you just mentioned your son and you having that moment over Bad Company a bunch of years ago. I had that same moment with my oldest. My favorite band is Rush. I love Rush with all of my heart, and I got into them in 1978 with Hemispheres, and I've seen them 30 plus, almost 40 times.
Damn.
I finally got to see them the last tour in 2015. Of course, we lost Neil, but I got to go to that show with my oldest kid, my son. And man, I'll tell you that moment will go to my grave as one of the greatest moments ever, to go to that show with my kid and share that moment. And I'll never forget my kid saying, "Hey, Dad, I think this band's going to actually turn out to be pretty big someday." And we saw them in like a 18,000 arena, and it's packed. You know what I mean? It was just such a cool moment. So let me ask you a minute. When you guys did disband, essentially from before the Psycho album, there was about a 16-year period where the band was kind of in dormancy. Was that about right?
Man, I can't even think of how many years, but it seemed like an eternity. But, we still try to keep the flame burning different ways. And one thing about Rush is that the one song that impacted me from Rush is The Working Man. Just a killer song, man. And they're such iconic legends and great musicians and such inspiring to so many people. And, music will take you places that you can never go. And like, what song would you play at your funeral? You want to play, the music is what it's about. And I do that on Beatles songs and Rolling Stones songs, man. I'm still stuck in the 60s with my shit. Yeah. So, but as far as the time between the things, 10, 15 years. Yeah, something like that.
What were you doing during that? Is that when you got into the Ride or Die stuff and all that stuff? Or what were you up to?
Well, I started Born to Ride in 96. Before that, I was doing pro wrestling in 1990 and still a little bit of Born to Ride. I mean, a little bit of Nasty Savage, but I went into the wrestling world and I ended up co-producing 200 episodes of the IWF wrestling at Universal Studios. And I took my character, Nasty Ronnie, into the character of Nasty Ronnie as the head of the Nasty organization. I had all the evil wrestlers and shit. I used the Nasty Savage songs to come out to, but I got in wrestling because of Kevin Sullivan, the Prince of Darkness, I was inspired by big time watching championship wrestling. One of my inspirations to do what I do is pro wrestling. Jim Morrison, Slayer, whatever. But it's pro wrestling was a big part of the American Dream. Dusty Rhodes, son of the plumber, the son of a plumber, the people's champion. So I kept following wrestling. And then Kevin Sullivan came on the scene like the Prince of Darkness. He took me the 13 steps of the 13th pyramid. He tied me to the tree of woe and he fed me the beetle nut, man, in those days. So I followed him and I went and we were backstage at a Judas Priest concert. and I saw Kevin Sullivan there, and I went up to him. I said, "Oh my gosh, I love you, man." And he goes, I go, "How can we work together?" And he told me, we'll come to the Sportatorium tomorrow and I'll talk to you. So I go to the Sportatorium. I wait there all day till the last guy, and I'm knocking on, and he goes, "I can't talk to you now. Come Sunday to the to Sarasota Robarts Arena." So I'd go all the way to Sarasota, and he'd blow me off again. And then he goes, "Come to Tampa next week at the Armory." I went there, and he blew me off again. But persistence, I said, "Look, man," I said, "I'm playing this Saturday night at Ruby's Pub in Tampa on Nebraska Avenue. Come see me and my band Nasty Savage." I didn't think nothing of it. And here we are on stage with the mayhem going down. And all of a sudden, a corner of my eye, I see them coming in the door and go to the back. The Purple Haze, Mayhaw Singh, Kevin Sullivan, and Sir Oliver Humperdinck. I'm like, oh my God. And they're watching me command the crowd. I mean, back then it was just more mayhem than ever you could have even imagined. So the next day, I get a phone call. "Hey, Nasty. Hey, Nasty. Hey, brother. It's Kevin Sullivan. I want you to come have lunch with us today." So I go, "Hell yeah." I go straight to his place in South Tampa, and his apartment. And he goes, "Dude," he goes, "I was really impressed with what you're doing, and you can be part of my entourage."
Wow.
So right away, I'm thinking, how do I give more value quickly and get over with this? I go, "Hey, let's go to Vandekar's house." I said, "You'll freak out on this guy, and you could film there and do the opening of the show. You could cut promos, all kinds of shit." So we go to Vandekar's, and then he does the opening of Pro Wrestling from Florida, the show everybody watches. And I used to watch it with my mom every Saturday night. My friends wouldn't come pick me up until 8 o'clock because that's when wrestling was over. I was a student of that game. And so we're at Vandekar's, and here's Kevin Sullivan cutting a promo, the opening of the show. He goes, "That's right, I'm here, the Prince of Darkness, at our house today, and I'm with a good friend of ours, Nasty Ronnie from Nasty Savage. These are the people we hang around with." So he cut a promo right there. I got over in the wrestling business. And then after that, I was able to go into these outlaw shows, and I went to Malenko School of Wrestling, and that's where I got my feet wet into wrestling. And before too long, I was actually running my own shows and being a promoter. And that's when the guy came to see me from IWF Universal and said, "I want you to come work for me." And that was my history of pro wrestling. And then I got a bunch of other shit that I did with wrestling and all kinds of big superstars and shit like that.
That's crazy, man. I mean, you seem to be just the kind of guy that says, "Don't tell me I can't do it, because that means I'm going to do it." You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I mean, who cares what people say? Just do it. Like I said, I'd rather fly with eagles than deal with turkeys. And life is short, man. So make the most of it when you got it.
Yeah. Let's jump into the. Oh, sorry.
Oh, my wife's saying something, saying it's very true. What's true?
If I say you can't do something, you say watch.
Oh yeah. So she says if I can't, someone tells me I can't, I end up doing it.
Exactly. I think I was pretty right on with that.
Well, when we were doing Born to Ride, I would come into the office, and Debbie, my wife, would be, she was working there, and she'd be the office. She'd take care of everything administratively. So I was a sales guy, a marketing guy.
Yeah.
And I'd come in and go, "Yeah, I'm going to do this." She goes, "We can't do that." I said, "Yeah, we can, because I just sold it. So we'll figure out we're going to do it. So we just do it, man. Just make it happen, Captain.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you have an energy about you that is just very infectious. I think you just, and I could very much see you walking into that room with those guys and going, "Hey guys, this is what we're going to do." Because you know how bands, they need that one guy, or maybe two at most, but they need that one guy to keep everything humming along, right? And you were always that guy,
Well, some guys are just bass players, and some guys just play guitar, and that's what they do because they're great musicians, or they want to be, and they're working towards that. Not everybody is a marketing guy. It's like, there's guys that are born with speed. You can't teach speed. You're born with it. I was born with a bent for brutality, but I was also born with a bent for marketing, promotions, and sales. It's just a natural. It's a natural thing for me. And it's, you could go to college, you can go to school and graduate all these degrees, But if you don't have common sense, man, you're never going to make it anywhere. So it's really common sense stuff works. Just stick to your word, shake someone's hand, look them in the eye, and then over deliver. And you'll always get you'll always get an opportunity. Like I would go up to these general managers who every day someone's trying to sell them something, and then I'm trying to pitch them my deal. Oh, let's do this bike night we'll do it the second Tuesday of every month. It's going to cost a full page ad and this and that. I said, look, I'll make you look good to your boss. And the guy goes, dude, no one's ever told me that. What did you say? I said, I'll make you look good to your boss. This is the GM. So the main guy, you got to serve somebody, So we do the promotion, and I knew what I had to do to make him look good. I worked real hard at it. All of a sudden we do it. Next day, his boss goes up to me and goes, damn, Jimmy, whatever you did, I'm happy. Great job, son. And then the next thing he goes is, that Ron Galletti told me he'd make me look good to my boss. So next time I call Jimmy, he's going to take my call. He's not going to say, no, tell him I'm not here. That guy wastes my time. He doesn't do shit, full of drama. No, man, deliver, and you'll get, use honey to get the bee. And that's what I've always tried to do. Just simple, simple, simple.
Let me go back a minute to when you were out with DRI. What year was that again?
That was like 1990.
Okay, so the band is around. Excuse me, the band's around 7-ish years or so, 8 years. How old are you on that tour? Late 20s?
Probably mid 20s. Yeah, probably early 20s.
How the hell are you going out?
Maybe 28. Maybe 28.
Yeah, later 20s, right?
Yeah.
How are
Sorry.
you going out every day and just abusing your body like that every freaking day for 60 days out of 65? I tell us how the hell you did that, or maybe better, get your wife on to tell us.
She doesn't know. How did I do it?
He comes down with bloody heads every time, gets the sheets all messed up at bed.
No, it seemed like hard, but actually, and Kelly would know this, that once you get in that zone, you stay in that zone. And for me, my voice got better and better and better. But the key was we were working with great sound men. Tony Izzo was there. He was DRI sound man.
Okay.
And we'd get to use him. So, man, if you listen to some of those tapes back then, I was hitting every single high note exactly like the albums, man.
Even the King Diamond stuff.
Oh yeah, all that shit. I mean, we're doing Aromantic Vertigo and shit. Just Aromantic Vertigo, stuff like that. And it's like, man, every night we toured Europe, the same thing. But I think the more you do it, the more you just get into it, and you have to compete every night. And then there's also rabid fans that want to meet you, and you owe them 110%.
Right.
And there's another band coming on after you. So you want to, there wasn't TV sets every night back then. I think we took some to start out. We didn't get any more. So, it was just brutalizing other ways of doing it. But 60 shows in 65 days, we were in a van. And I remember the van would leak.
Insane.
We were putting bubble gum fill up the holes. And then we're trying to get places to stay. We'd wake up in the back alley of another gig, and we'd just wake up and we'd be there for sound check. And I remember we'd get pizzas from every place. So we were getting the best pizza around New York, Chicago, Philadelphia. Yeah. So it was just a fun time, and it went by so fast. And when you have leadership like Spike from DRI, who's just a road dog continuing to this day.
Amazing.
They're still doing that shit.
Amazing, yeah.
And he was such a class act. And I remember I smelled tear gas for the first time ever in Sacramento on that tour when DRI was doing this crossover album. Then they did Thrash Zone, and the hardcore people, the real skinhead hardcores with the boots on and the black jackets and shit, didn't like that. So they'd go in and cause trouble.
Yeah.
And, we learned a lot about just being open-minded. And our first show with that tour was Lawrence, Kansas, in the big cornfield in this gig out there. And, so many people were so open-minded. And then there was the narrow-minded. So you learned so much. It was an amazing learning process.
Let me ask you this: what was the part? You don't have to get into detail, but what was the partying like back then? I mean, was it pretty epic, or were you as the singer? It's a little different for you in a lot of ways than the other guys in the band because they can get hammered, and usually if they're not too hungover, they can still do their thing. But when your voice is your instrument, how were you on the road with that? Were you pretty controlled, or were you out of control?
Well, you got to be disciplined. For me, I've never been a drinker. I mean,
Ah,
I don't drink. I don't drink
good for
beer. I don't
you,
drink
man.
anything. Once in a while, I'll have something socially, but
Yeah,
I never like to be fogged up or bogged down or controlled by pills or none of that shit. We do some of the other stuff, but in back then it wasn't just a sausage party. There was actually chicks and there was guys and metalheads. So now it's just all guys everywhere. So but as far as drugs and stuff, man, I never was a drinker, so I knew what I had to do. I had to always be ready to play. David Austin was the drinker, man. We'd
okay.
get two cases of beer, and after every show, he couldn't wait to get those beers and get hammered.
Yeah.
And David would sometimes the places that we'd stay, he would get real obnoxious and start messing with everybody. And then when he passed out, we'd paint his fingernails and paint his face. And then one time we went to the store in the morning. We go, come on, we got to go. And he's like, we painted his fingernails, everything. He's at the store. He goes, pull over. I got to get cigarettes. So we pull over in the store, and I go in there with him, and he's buying all this shit. And he's looking down at his hands at the register. He's just, who the hell painted my fingernails? I go, wait till you see your face. So he'd do shit like we'd put our luggage down and leave, and he'd leave his luggage on the street, come back, and it was gone. Just crazy shit like that. It was always something funny, man. And or this is what we would do too when we had to buy a hotel. We'd get one room with two beds, and everybody'd run in and jump on the beds. So I'd always sleep in the same bed with David Austin, because I knew David would get so fucked up and he'd pass out. And then I would just pick up one side of the bed, and then he'd roll onto the floor, and he'd wake up on the floor every night, and he'd go, how the hell did I get on the floor? I go, hell, I don't know. And I had the whole bed to myself.
That's awesome. Hey, John has a quick thing. We're going to get into the new album now in 1 second.
All right.
Ron and I have mutual Tampa, Florida friends. Ken Carnig, Mike Browning from Nocturnus, who I had on a couple of months ago. Mike's a great guy. Love Mike. What an awesome dude. Last saw Nasty Savage live at the Defenders of the Old Festival in Brooklyn 2017. So there you go. Cool stuff. Let's talk about the new album. So again, it's Jeopardy Room. It comes out on FHM tomorrow, essentially, but it did actually come out on Friday over in Germany at the Keep It True Fest. Were you guys the headliner, or who was the headliner? Was it you or Tim Glory?
No, there's two bands after us. I think it was Pentagram or Demon one before and after us. Mm-hmm. And then Sirith Ungol is like their last show that they're playing in Europe, which are legendary guys, man, and all great guys. Hellwitch played with us too that night, and they're so awesome, Pat, old school. But that Defenders of the Old, what a weird name, man, for that show in Brooklyn. Defenders of the Old. Anyway, we played that, and I think that was Pete's first gig with us, and David met Pete for the first time on stage because he flew in from Tennessee.
Wow.
A little bit of history there. And Richard Bateman was still with us then. It was a really cool show, and I really enjoyed that. But
Bateman was with Nocturnus, right? Back in the day. Was he with Richard Bateman was with Nocturnus. Was he?
Yeah, I think Richard played with a lot of different bands. Actually, our new bass player, Kyle, is the current bass player of Nocturnus as well.
Right.
And you talk about a cool guy is Mike Browning. What history he's got in our metal community, and the cool thing about Mike is he's a toy collector like me. He collects toys, and I always see him at all the toy shows. And
cool.
He's just a kind soul, man. That's really got a big mind, and that's what it's about, man. It's about how cool people treat each other. There's no egos with most of us, and you just do your thing and help each other when you can.
Tell us about the new band. The only guy that I'm very familiar with is Kyle Sokol, because he played on Kelly's side project from Atheist. He played on Till the Dirt, I believe. And tell me a little bit about how you put the new band together then once Austin left. I mean, that you are the last remaining original guy. Tell us a little bit about the other guys in the band.
You know, what happened with that is Dave was gone. After we played Mexico City, he bowed out. He said, "Look, man, I'm just a little burnt out. I'm tired. I've done all I can or want to do. I'm done." You know, still dealing with promoters and bullshit. And when you go to Mexico, you're gonna any kind of South American country, you're gonna deal with that kind of stuff. So anyway, he was gone, and he thought, "Oh, it's the end of Nasty Savage," and I'm like, "It's not the end of Nasty Savage, man. I've got another chapter that I really, really want to do because I've been saving up. I'm not a bird man. I'm a word man. I've been saving up a lot of words and shit, titles, and you know, I've got a vision." So Pete was with us. He's staying. Jim, the drummer, he's staying. Scott Carino was playing with us. Actually, it was Scott Carino was playing with us, and he was staying. We needed to find a new guitarist. And I said, "Pete, what do you got?" And he said, "Man, I know this guy, Dave Orman, who played with us on Contorted album, and he's a wicked guitarist, and he could even play like Al Di Meola." I said, "Get him." Wow. We called Dave. He really wasn't familiar with Nasty Savage. So he learned the songs, started listening to it. And so he was on. Then we started playing shows. And then we got this record deal. And that's when Scott bowed out and we got Kyle involved. The coolest thing about Kyle, man, is he's like 6'4" or something, and he plays his bass real high.
Oh, he's up here. It's so weird.
We call him like Spider-Man.
He looks like
he stalks the stage, but he was also a captain in the U.S. Army, man. And when you're a captain, you take care of business. Sure. You can deal with logistics. You're always on time, and you're very professional. And man, that is the coolest thing about him. So he stepped in. Don't have to worry a thing about him. He's going to deliver. And I sent Kyle out ahead on the perimeter to find out all the cool places in each town. Before we even get on the plane, he knows everything going on with the town, nice. The gig, where to eat, whatever you need. I put him in charge of that. So that's where we put it all together, man. We just started playing. Kyle's in the band. His first show was 2 Minutes to Tulsa, and he kicked ass. I gave him a baptism by fire. Bumped into him a lot of times on stage, dropped the TV sets around him and shit. You know, he felt the mayhem, right? But he was a Nasty Savage fan, you know?
Okay. Yeah, that helps.
And I was looking for a bass player because we were on a timeline. I'm like, oh my God, we got an album, we got this gig. I put this post on that said, "Hey, who's the hottest bass player around? I need a bass player for a project." I didn't say it was Nasty Savage. Mm-hmm. And James Murphy, everybody knows James Murphy, another legend. A legend himself. He said, "Hey, contact Kyle Sokol." And I go, "Well, hell, do you have his number?" He gave me his number. I called Kyle. He was like, "Whoa." He goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "You want me to learn the set that you just did in Belgium?" I go, "Yeah, you already looked at it?" He goes, Yeah. He learned it, and now he's got a spot, man. He's on the album.
Nice. So speaking about the album, there's the FHM. All this stuff is in the links are in the description, the website, the Facebook page, the Instagram, FHM. I also put the two, I put Brainwasher and I forget
Schizoid.
The other video. Yeah, Schizoid platform. I put up the videos for those. So that's all in the description. So you can find out if you want to order this. You got to check it out because I got to tell you, I haven't had it long. But I've already listened to it 3 times, and it's a super catchy, thrashy, ball-crushing album. There are some killer riffs on this. Your wordsmith stuff is on point. A couple of things stand out for me. And you did this at Morris Sound with Jim Engineering. Did he co-produce, or did you?
Well, that just comes with the money, man. When you pay him, he's gonna produce it. He's gonna do whatever it takes to get you out of that building so he could get his next session in, and take you out of there with professionalism and all the service he can possibly give you. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I love about that guy. We did the whole thing in 8 sessions.
That's crazy, man. Holy fuck.
I did my vocals in a day and a half. 20 years ago we did Psycho. So I'm just going to get up this day, I'm going to go to the studio and cut some vocals for an album. I'm like, and I already knew the timeline I had. I watched the drums go down, the bass, the rhythm, the leads, and now it was my turn. Think of the anxiety and nervousness and just fear I really had that I knew that I was have to do. But, you know, I just went and accomplished it. And I, you know, because you got to, that's 8 songs I wrote, you know, 9 songs I had to sing. And you can't burn your voice out quick, you know. So I had to deliver for the guys because they delivered for me. And man, it's freaky, but I had my poems, I call them, or my short stories. I had my words, and I knew what I was going to deliver, like a sermon, like a preacher, you know, preaching out the word, you know, and I knew what I had to do because they're meaningful short stories I had to tell. They're mixed up.
Do you give them a song? Did you give all the guys, the primary writers? Because we usually how it works out in bands is the guitarists generally come up with a riff, or if you have a keyboardist, they come up with a riff. Did you just go in there and say, "Hey guys, here's the song titles. Do what works for these song titles," and brings that imagery up? Is that how it kind of worked?
Well, I mean, what I had to do is first tell them, look, we're doing an album. And it's going to be in your hands. You are the guys for Nasty Savage in 2024. Right. It's up to you. Okay, I'm not a musician, so what I wanted, like the $6 million man shit, bigger, faster, stronger, heavier. You know, I just instilled that in them, the image that I wanted to portray. So I said, don't worry about the past. Yeah, you got some shoes to fill, but fuck it. Do it your way. I want it faster. I want some crunch rhythms. It could be simpler. It doesn't have to be all crazy and shit. I want even more accessible, maybe to me, so I could sing better to it. You know, if you listen to the other stuff, there's a lot of complicated stuff that they were just throwing at me. And that's the thing. They would just throw me the songs, and then I'd put the lyrics and the titles to the songs that they did. This way, I told them, I said, Pete, I've got this song. It's Schizoid Platform, and it's got to be platforms of schizophrenia and shit when you hear it, you know, coming. And Pete's a shredder. Like I said, they were in Contorted and shit. So they're really based more death metal guitar guys. So then I had, I don't know if I was saying it in this interview, the last one I did, but I got to write, and Pete goes, well, yeah, this song has a slow part where you can really sing and talk or whatever real slow. And I came up with this red cloak clowns looking down, humanoid, avoid the void, hell, the corrosive mind, divide the night, Hellevato, Mondo Bizarro. You know, so it's like I always wanted to use those words, and each song was developed like that. And so I would get with Dave, and I'd give him a title: Aztec Elegance, Blood Syndicate, Brainwasher. You know, Pete did Sainted Devil and Operation Annihilate. You know, and it's like I just tried to get those guys to do whatever they wanted to do to make it how I like it or wanted it. And I never turned any away. And what they would do is that they'd send it to me on Messenger, and I'd have Dave Orman say, okay, sing, stop. Sing, stop. Right. So that was my blueprint. You know, here's the chorus, start, sing, you know, stop. Right. So that was my blueprint, man. And once I had a blueprint, I already had the concept and the ideas and all the songs, information, maybe rhymes and words, phrases, you know, and I had them all in these different journals for each song. And then when I got the song, I was able to start working with the title, with the blank canvas, and doing the paint to the canvas to write these songs. So it was a really exciting time for me, getting to create again, sort of like a Picasso would create a painting. I was creating these songs. To me, they're each identity of short stories.
Well, a couple of observations. First of all, the production is fantastic, and you would expect that out of Jim, of course. And by production, I mean the engineering, just the guitar tones, man. It's got that crunchy, I don't know what your guys were using, but it's got that crunchy Mesa tone, man. There's a lot of Mesa Mesa Boogie sounds on this to my ears as a guitar player. Really fantastic production. And while you said that they're not, some of the earlier Nasty Savage, and I think you're 100% accurate with this. There's some complex music in a lot of Nasty Savage. Like we did myself and a friend of mine, Dennis, we did a deep dive on Nasty Savage, all the releases back late last year, I believe it was. And I think one of the things that kind of like stunned me when I went back to the music, a couple of things I wasn't even familiar with, like Indulgence. And man, that's like a progressive prog metal album, man. There's like some crazy shit on there guitar wise, right? Like stellar fucking guitar work, stellar bass work. This one maybe not quite as complex, although there's a lot of killer riffs on here. But man, this is a thrasher, man. This album is just thrashy as fuck. It just goes right here for the jugular and just does not let go, man. Couple notes on here, like for example, Jeopardy Room, man. Killer riffs, killer solos on that. Brainwasher, man. That fucking intro riff, holy balls. It's like getting beat over the head with a shovel, just over and over, right? And here's what I said. I said it comes straight for the jugular and Colombian neckties you. That's what it sounded like to me, Southern Fried has that really cool acoustic-y sort of intro that's kind of spooky and a little bit eerie, whatnot, and then it just flies into just all-out thrash. Witch's Sabbath, probably my favorite song on the album. Now, is that an older track?
Yeah, Witch's Sabbath was a song that was on our demo tape, and we've always played it, and it's one of the only songs that we never re-recorded. So that was the connection with Obituary and John and Don Tonald to bring back the original from the 80s and have them do it in 2024 with us.
Yeah.
And, I said, dude, I want a funeral sounding organ here and there.
So
we
cool.
We just made all that shit happen. And I think we turned a classic into an epic with that.
That's my favorite song on the album. And the reason I like it is it's got that real spooky atmospheric intro, and you got some cool phasing effects and, vocal effects going on. It's really, really cool. It really does sound like the song title. That one's probably, again, and it's probably the least thrashy song. It's probably the most like heavy metal sounding song.
Yeah, because that's from the 80s, and that's Fred Dregerson wrote that. Like that's a progression like Maiden or Merciful Fate stuff.
Very Maiden. I was just gonna say it's very Maiden-y. It has that early Maiden.
One thing about that song is that was before our demo because we put it on the demo. Fred gave me that song and he had different lyrics and it had a different title.
Oh,
and
really?
I was doing this research on occultism and all this shit and witches and shit, reading all these books. I said, dude, I want to write a song called Witch's Sabbath. And I took that. I said, Fred, do you mind? He goes, no, do what you want. And I took that song and made it into a whole nother song.
That's a super killer track. Schizoid, we just talked about that. The lyrics that you just said out, the Blood Red, what is it? Tell me again.
Red Cloak Clowns. Yeah.
That's it, Red Cloak Clowns. That thing has a real interesting meter to it. It's got a real groove. It's groove, you know what I mean? It's got that groove kind of vibe to it. Really cool track there. Aztec Elegance, another spooky intro, and that one's kind of proggy. It has a little bit of a proggy metal sort of vibe to it. Very melodic, very memorable riffs on that one. And the rest of the track, Sainted Devil, really killer closer. I really like that track too. So
yeah, the Aztec Elegance, man, is just something I always wanted to write about, the Mayans and the Aztecs. And I watched that movie Apocalypto. The actual song, the name was going to be Apocalypto, and then I changed it to something like Aztec Elegance. And working with Dave Orman on that, People of the Banner of the Sun, all that shit. I mean, it's just, and when you hear it, Apocalypto, and then you hear the echo behind Apocalypto, it's always, listen to it again loud. It's almost hypnotic, man.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is.
Tell me, what kind of plans do you have here moving forward with Nasty Savage? I know you're scheduled to play Hell's Heroes in March, which is a great.
Right.
Awesome fucking Baca, man. He does a killer job with that fest. You're going to be going to be there with Crimson Glory again. What's the plan? Would there be any possibilities of a U.S. tour, or are you kind of only in the festival mode for the most part?
I mean, that's a good question, and you know, it's hard at my age to just go
Right.
out and do a tour. We don't have a booking agency yet. I don't have management, and we have a small label, so we're kind of taking it step by step. I think the best thing for us would be to get on a support tour and be support to someone else that we could gain a bigger following and gain a better, you know, more people to check out who we are, what we are, and our new music. So I'm open to all that stuff, but you know, I mean, it's not the easiest thing right now. And that's what's weird about that is here's Obituary. They came to my house when they were kids asking how to start a band. I get them in this album, on this album. So I'm cutting this video of behind the scenes that I'm producing. So I have to go back to their place in Gibsonton. I got to get some quotes for the story. And they go, sure, come on over. So I go over there. I do the interview with them, which I don't really like to do the interviews, but they did it for me. Got their quotes, you know, made me feel real good what they said. You know, it's because, you know, it's unbelievable that those guys have such impact from us, and they're not afraid to say it. But after we're done, I'm talking to them and I'm going, well, tell me about the merchandise and you get a tour bus and how do you do the marketing and how do you bring the cash back? And, you know, how do you, so now the teacher is now the student, man, and they're teaching me shit, you know, and I'm not shy. I'm like, dude, you're teaching me now. Look at this. Isn't this cool? You know, it's like, I think it was funny as hell when I'm driving home. Like, dude, they were teaching me shit. You know, how to they turned me on to the promotions guy John that hooked us up today for this interview.
Could you imagine?
So I hired him to help us, and we have a person in Europe too, but. They helped me out, man, and they're continuing to help me out. And I'm not afraid to ask questions because they're the teachers now. I'm just the student, man.
Right.
It's pretty, and they're going, we're nothing but glorified T-shirt salesmen. You know, they're fucking smart as fuck. Those guys, man.
Yeah, kind of. Ronnie, there's one word I would never, ever associate with you, and that is shy. Just saying.
You can't be shy, man.
Could you imagine? You know how Exodus, Testament, Death Angel did that Bay Area, what was that called? The Bay Area Thrasher thing or whatever. They did that 3 thing that happened right before. Do you remember that right before the pandemic? Tour? Yeah, they did the Bay Area. Fuck, what was that called? It was Death Angel, Exodus, and Testament, and they did a European tour, and they got caught over there, or almost got caught, right as the pandemic hit. I can't remember. Yeah. John will know. John will remember the name of it.
I think I did hear about that.
But could you imagine a Tampa Bay or a Tampa Terror tour? Tampa Terror tour right there. I just gave you your name, man. It would be Nasty Savage, Obituary, Atheist, Cynic, maybe even, although they'd be a little bit outside the box. Cynic's a little outside the box there. Who else, man? I mean, who else could Massacre? Fuck,
Monstrosity.
Monstrosity. That would be the Cannibal, although Cannibal's kind of a little bit above everybody there, I guess. You know, when you're talking about the apex predators, Cannibal are still. Could you imagine a tour like that? That fucker would do killer business.
Yeah, you know, it would be great, and I would love to do that with anybody. And one thing I really think a promoter needs to do is redo that World War III thing. Celtic Frost, Destruction, Voivod, Nasty Savage, and Possessed. All those bands are still active.
Yeah.
We're also playing a gig in January in Mount Dora with Venom, Deicide, and Nasty Savage.
All right, where's that at?
It's in Mount Dora at this theater. I can't remember the name of it, but Venom Inc. I talked to Glenn Benton and got him hooked up with the promoter, Fat Harry Promotions, a name from the past.
Oh boy!
And we're playing, and some other band too. I can't remember the other band. And we're also playing Swarm Fest at the Brass Mug in November.
Yes, that's right. That's coming up. That's a big one there. I only watched in one interview. I typically watch a couple interviews just to get some ideas about where I want to go with things. But I saw your interview with Vincent, with Crowley, from Asheron, and I mean he's an old dude from that network too, so it's kind of cool. I think he's playing there. Who else? Who are some of the other bands on that bill? Do you know?
Shit, man, I can't even remember. I know Nocturnus is supposed to play, so Kyle will play 2 different gigs.
Oh, nice.
But actually, Crowley's not going to make it now. For unreasonable, unforeseen circumstances. He can't play.
Okay.
Which sucks because I never really met the guy, and he was really kind and gave me that spot on his cast. So it was really cool to talk to him. There's so many people that are part of our network that are. A thing that I would like to do is I'd like to leave a legacy, man. So there's the first wave, that second wave. Where's the third wave of new bands that are badass that should be on a new compilation from, Swampland compilation? I don't know, something that I would like to feature 10 or 12 bands and say, this is who the fuck we are. This is the Florida flag flying motherfuckers, and that's what I'd really love to do is highlight some bands that are out really working hard and deserve it. The hottest, heaviest, bust somebody in the face with these guys and leave a legacy. I'm working on some stuff right now that maybe I could do my own, not podcast, but some kind of history of Tampa Bay, history of Florida metal. And I'm going to start maybe interviewing all these different bands and get a few sponsors. Because I did the Born to Ride shit. I think I have what I need to know to be able to pull this off. And I could probably get anybody I wanted to do an interview, from John Oliva to Crimson Glory to Jim Morris. We could have the Morrisound moment. Now let's go to the Morrisound moment, or now let's go to Dean Guitar.
I definitely want to get Jim on, man. I'm working on that. In fact, I was supposed to have. You mentioned. Oh my God! Come on now, James Murphy. And I got in touch with him through David Gelke, who wrote the book with Scott Burns, also the obituary book. David Gelke was the guy that wrote both those. And I thought James and I would have hooked up by now. So I'm not sure what happened with that. I'll have to try.
You have his number?
I don't. We'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, because I might be able to hook you up with him. James is a right-on guy, man, really.
Yeah, super.
I just was at a gas station in Lakeland one day. I was going to one of my antique malls because I have booths in antique malls all around the state. And I see this guy with gray hair. And from way back, I thought he was an older guy, an old man or something. And he had this funky cat shirt on. And then he had a metal hat on. And I go, dude, I said, you're into some of that heavy metal crap? He goes, fucking Nasty Ronnie. I go, yeah, man. He goes, I'm James Murphy. And I didn't even recognize him. And then we hit it off. And then he ended up coming to the mall that I was at. I go, I'll be over at this place. And he came, and actually I had records there. And I happened to have the Psycho album as one of the records I was selling. Yeah. And he bought it. He bought it that day. It was like, that's really cool. He hung out. And then that's when he gave me the contact to Kyle months later, because I had his number and shit. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Kelly's been on a number of times. I had Ben Jackson on. I've had Paul Masvidal on, Scott Burns. I know there's others I'm probably forgetting. So, I've had a lot of the Tampa guys, but I'm not going to have the connections you are. You have the primo. Speaking of that, are you?
Well, you know what? I really don't have connections because I'm not in the scene at all. But I make a few phone calls, and I can usually get whatever I'm looking for.
Are you and Oliva still close, or were you ever close, or friends, or what?
No, I don't have a connection with him, but I could get him through certain people I know. And John was always that iconic man on the mountain thing, but I really think that he's such a genius. But in the days when we used to play with them, I really think they were intimidated by us, even though we were nowhere in their league. They knew the mayhem that we brought, right? And they would cut our lights, and they'd cut our sound, and they'd cut us off early all the time, man. It was funny as hell because we were at London Victory Club, and we were just up in the dressing room, and John Oliva came up. They were playing with us that night, and he came up there, was hanging out for a minute, and we all left, and he didn't know we were still like in the hallway, and he goes, wait till you get a load of these guys. They're the shit. they're the shits. He said,
Nice.
and that's what he said to someone. I go, damn, did he just talk some shit about us? It was just funny, man. But
That's awesome, man.
I talked with him at length a few times about songwriting, and I got a lot of inspiration and ideas from him. And we used to go follow them all over the state to thrash and headbang, and when they were Avatar, Sirens, and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
He's just a genius songwriter, and Jim Morris has 100 stories about them coming in the studio and how he just blew everybody away. All of a sudden, he just jumps on the piano and plays a Beatles song to the T.
Insane.
And Jim Morris is a Beatle fanatic, and he thought they were just some rock and roll guys looking like bombs or something. Next thing you know, it's John Oliva and his brother, and the history that came from that. There's rich history here, man, to respect, and just unbelievable stuff.
That same record store I stopped at this past Saturday at that show, I found this, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's going home with me right now.
What's that? The Sirens?
Yep.
Oh
like,
man,
that is absolutely coming home with me. I don't care how much that thing is, but so you got some fest. You got the thing in November. What's it called again? I'm sorry, you said
Swarm Fest,
and that's in Florida, right?
Yeah, that's at the Brass Mug.
Okay. And then you've got the
Hell's Heroes,
right? Any other bigger shows coming up?
We might be booked in August. We're looking at August, Alcatraz Fest, possibly in Belgium.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a pretty big one. And, so I'm sure a lot of things will come up, but it's not like I'm ready to be that rabbit and run out there like the Energizer Bunny. I'll be more like the tortoise that always finishes, and takes care of business when we have to.
You know how it goes, Ronnie, man. I mean, I was Mr. Energy guy until I hit about 55. It was like all downhill from there. So you have to, everything hurts every single day, and you just got to keep plowing through it and making shit happen, like you said. So,
it's like the guy Dave Orman. He's like 20 years younger or something, and I'm calling him Grasshopper. I said, Grasshopper, just chill out. We'll get to that. We got to do this. We should do that. I was like, I do Grasshopper. It's like the two. There's a bull. The bull and the cat and the little bull on the mountaintop, and they're looking down at all the cows. And the young one goes, "Let's run down there and fuck one of them cows." Right. And the old guy goes, "No, let's just walk down and fuck them all." That's where I'm at now, walking down and fucking them all.
Hey, you got to, before you dip out of here, you got to tell the Billy Milano story. You got to tell it. It's just too goddamn funny. It's too.
Yeah, man. First off, we're playing at Lemoore in Brooklyn in probably '84 with Slayer and Hollow's Eve. But before that, the night before, we were at CBGB's. I played in CBGB's, didn't take one photo. Back then we just wasn't doing it. Didn't do it.
Well, we didn't have cell phones back then either.
I know, man. So I had a telegram came to CBGB's for me. And it was from Wendy O. Williams. And she said, "Hey, Nasty, I'm sorry I won't be there tonight at CBGB's. I'm in LA with Lemmy and Motorhead, but I'll see you tomorrow at Lemoore." So I'm like, "Oh, cool, man." So here I am after our show at Lemoore. Our dressing room had no shower, and I have glass and shit all over me, cuts and stuff. So I go into Slayer's dressing room, and they're in there warming up. I go, "Hey, guys," I said, "can I use your shower and take a shower?" And they go, "Fuck no, you can't use in our shower. We're Slayer." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I go back down to my basement down there, and they go on stage. So what do? I go in their dressing room, take a shower. And I'm in there taking a shower, and then Wendy O. Williams comes in. And now it's like me and Wendy are in there. And then we're hanging out for about an hour, and time goes by so fast that Slayer's over, and they come in their dressing room, and me and Wendy are just hanging out, sitting down, partying, whatever. And I've just got a towel on, and they're like, "Hey, man, it's Wendy and Williams. Cool." And she goes, "Hey, boys." She goes, "But I'm here to see Nasty Ronnie, and let's go, Nasty." And then we just left.
No.
So that was part of it. But that same show, Billy Milano was there, and I did this interview in Metal Forces. And then like the next month, I guess they interviewed him. And they said something about, yeah, Nasty Ronnie, we had him last month. He goes, "Oh, that guy's a wimp, man." He goes, "He's fake and phony. Matter of fact, he smashes a fake TV set." And he said, if I could kick his ass in 5 seconds. And I'm like, so of course the guys from Metal Forces contact me and say, look what he said. Look what he said.
Yeah,
trying to stir the pot. So I'm like, oh, they go, "Nasty, would you like to comment?" I go, "All right. If I ever see him, tell him I'll have my stopwatch." So he's like, "Okay." And then we're playing in New Jersey like a next month later or something. And I'm on stage and I see him in the crowd walking around like the back of the room. I'm like, oh shit.
It's going down.
Shit. So I'm like, damn, I was bird dogging him the whole time, watching where he's at. And we go off stage, and I was in the dressing room 5 minutes. I came right out looking, searching, and I see him go into the bathroom. So I said, this is my opportunity. And he's a big dude, man, you know?
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's like a big bowling ball wrestling dude, whatever. And I'm like $160 back then, $180. I didn't care. I was going to defend my honor, defend my Southern honor. Anyway, I go into the bathroom and he's taking a leak. So I go right up behind him and take my hand behind his head and push his head into the wall real hard. And I went and pushed back, and I jumped back about 3 or 4 feet in my kung fu stance. And I said, "Hey, Billy, it's Nasty Ronnie, and I brought my stopwatch." And he goes, "Oh," he's trying to zip up his pants. Go, "Who the hell? What the fuck?" And I go, "And I brought my stopwatch." And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "Man, I was having a bad time, and I didn't really mean that. I didn't, I'm sorry." I go, so I was like, cool. In my mind, I'm going, cool, I don't have to fight him. But I was ready. And Dan Linker was in the bathroom, and so was Richard Bateman. So Richard Bateman would tell that story throughout the years. I'd just say, "Richard, tell the story." And he'd tell it to the T. But we became friends. Actually, that night took some pictures together and shit. So it's always better to work things out than throw down. But
Yeah.
I was damn sure ready to throw down with my stopwatch. And we actually became friends on Facebook, I think, a couple of years ago.
Did you say Danny Lilker was there?
Yeah, the bass player from Nuclear Assault.
Yeah, fucking God, man. I met him down in Decibel Fest a couple years ago. Dude's like 7 foot tall, man. He's like and he's skinny as a bean, man. He's like skinny and fucking giant, man. Really nice guy, though. Super, super nice.
Yeah, the Nuclear Assault, they haven't played many shows, but they played with us in North Carolina, the Chainsaw Massacre, and they were playing right after us. So earlier in the day, I got to talk to him, and I reminded him about that night. He goes, "Oh, yeah, brother, I remember that." He goes, "That was classic." And they played after us.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said they played after us in Carolina, and then 2 more bands played after us. And we're not really used to not going on but last.
Right.
So it's like, man, we came in at a really good time, prime time for the crowd. But man, I'm smashing TVs. I got the Crimson Blood going, and just crazy set. And I could see those guys watching us going, man, we got to step it up tonight, man. But that's the thing about heavy metal. The next band comes in, they do their job, and it was a really cool night, though. I remember the look in their eyes when the mayhem was going down.
Was that recently, the Chainsaw thing? Is that the McEntee
It was probably 3 years ago or so.
Is that the McEntee Incantation Fest or no?
Yeah, it was that guy that runs it.
Right.
What John, a great guy he is.
He's awesome, man. I got to get him on one of these days too. So, look, Ronnie, man, first of all, thanks so much for doing this. And big props to John Freeman, who helped set this up, because the interesting thing was I'd been talking to Kelly off and on for a couple months, saying, "Hey, I got to get Nasty Ronnie. You got to get me in touch with him." He's like, "All right, let me look into it." And then he'd forget about it, or we'd forget about it. And I actually had hit up John Freeman about a different artist, a Finnish artist named Juha from Swallow the Sun. And I did that, and he's like, "Hey, by the way, would you want to talk to Nasty Ronnie?" I'm like, "Fuck, dude, I've been wanting to get him on for a year." Yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So big props to John, man.
Yeah, he's been doing really well, and that's what it takes. It's a village of people who work together to make things happen, and everybody kind of knows their roles, what they do best, and I'm part of the chain, man, a chain of command. Whatever I paid him money to do that, to get this press, because 20 years ago we didn't have it, and I'm willing to invest, to make this shit happen. I can't, thank you enough for making it happen as well.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Everybody in the description, the links in the description are there for NastySavage.com, Facebook, Nasty Savage, official Instagram, FHM, where you can get the album. I didn't have a chance yet to look at all the variants and stuff because this actually came together very quick. Friday was when John asked me. I'm like, yeah, and I've had some health shit I've been dealing with, so it was kind of like I gotta juggle some things and make this work. But I'm so glad, man. I'm hoping. I'm planning to be at Hell's Heroes. I'm planning to be down there. Hopefully that happens, and if I am, I'll definitely connect with you down there, and I'll be one of those guys getting stuff signed and grabbing a T-shirt and all that good stuff. So
yeah, man. I mean, whatever you need, and like I said, I can't thank you enough. But the cool thing about it is, John, I don't know how much he knew about Nasty Savage or anything, and when I hired him, he was like, yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden he got really excited a couple of days and weeks later. He goes, people really want to talk to you, man. You got some real people who know who you are. So, it's all good, man. And it's where we're at right now. We have to make the most of it. Like that Southern Fried Homicide song, Joy and Sorrow Today and Tomorrow, what greater crime than the loss of time. And, there's one other thing we have is the Nasty Savage Metal Nights. Nasty Savage Metal Nights. It's a Facebook group. So you go there and just sign up, and here's where you can post your stuff too. You can this interview. You go in, you just sign up. David Austin runs it. He'll approve, and then next thing you know, you can start posting stuff there, and it's like-minded people who have something to say or share photos, stories, road stories, whatever it is. Seeing us in concert. It's a Nasty Savage group, and there's a bunch of love there, man. It's really cool to see the people. I swear, I mean, we've had like 20, 30, 40 every day signing up. So
that's awesome.
The more you get it out there, the more we'll do it. And there's probably over 3,000 people right now. So, it's a good network to when we want to sell merchandise or shows or, whatever else.
Sure. I will, I'll add that when we get done here.
Please do.
When we wrap up here, I'll get the info for you, and I'll post it in the description, and then I'll send John the link, or else you can just give me your email address off air, and I'll send it to you. Then that way you can do what you want with it, wherever you want to post it.
And like I said, you could post it on the Nasty Savage Metal Nights too. So all you have to do is sign up and become a member. But I mean, if you want my number, I give it to you when you're done here. I'll give you my contact stuff. Cool. And we can do it that way too. Anything you need, brother, I'm always here for you. And I could always be somebody as a goodwill ambassador. It doesn't have to be about Nasty Savage. I could just be the guy that's bringing somebody on board or interviewing, whatever you need, man.
Sure, man. I mean, you're one of the most personable guys I've ever met, and most of the metal guys I've met I've been very fortunate. I did this on a whim back 3 years ago, and it's been a slow roll because I can't invest every minute I'm awake into it. And I do this as a labor of love. I don't make a single dime out of this. I could care less about that. It's about introducing people to these amazing musicians and bands from that era that I was lucky enough to be part of as a young guy, and now as an old guy, I'm still part of it. And you know how it is, man. The metal chooses you. You don't choose the metal.
Well, what you do is you're a storyteller, and you have to tell a story, and to the stories that you want to tell. So when you have a subject, you got to get them to tell a story. Like a lot of times you'll go, wow, that was a killer show, wasn't it? And they go, yep. Like, come on, man, give me some
gotta go deep in that,
elaboration.
man.
You
Gotta
know,
go deep into it, you know?
like, oh, that's a pretty motorcycle. I really like the color. And they're going to go, yep. So it's like, you just got to realize you got a job to do as the guy that's getting interviewed. Give them some stuff to work with.
Yeah.
And you're doing great with you're taking care of your business fine, brother. I really like your style. And I'm just here to tell the story of Nasty Savage on my thing. But that's what I do. I do interviews for Born to Ride. I got to interview bike guys and, industry people and destination places. It's all about the interview, man. Because I'll ask a question, then they'll say something and answer. And I go, but what were you thinking when you did that? And now I got more sound bites,
Yes.
So it's so important.
Ronnie, the way I look at this is, when I first started doing this about 3.5, 4 years ago, I was an HR guy. I was in HR for many, many years. So I know how to talk to people. I know how to bring things out of people. But when I first started doing it, I was a lot more like everything was written and scripted. Like, okay, next question. And it felt that way. But as I got more comfortable with it, I started realizing I want to have conversations with these guys. I don't want to just ask the obvious bullshit. It's like two dudes that met at a bar. We're having a beer and maybe a burger, and we just start chatting about whatever, whether it's metal or the weather or politics or whatever. I want to have those kind of conversations, and that's what I feel I do best. I feel I do that best. So,
well, I think if you're going to do it, but research, know some stuff, know what you're talking about, because it's going to help you have a better interview. And hit them with the hard shit hit them with something that they didn't like to talk about. Put the widow on the set. We need dirty laundry.
I do.
And that's what I tell my cameramen when they're crying and we got emotion, push in. Give me the emotion.
Yeah.
It makes people feel it.
Get the real feel.
That's what television is, or that's what production is. It's put the widow on the set. We need dirty laundry. And if he gets pissed off, push in. Don't be scared and go away. Ask another question. Well, how did that happen? How did you feel? Next thing you know, man, you got people on the edge of their seats going, holy shit, what's he going to do next week? Just keep pushing the envelope.
The only thing I'm a little careful with, and I usually do this with my interviewees, I will ask, look, is there anything that's completely off the table? And the reason I do that is, on occasion, I know about an uncomfortable, talk about Voivod. There's an uncomfortable situation legally there that, the guys did not want to get into. And I appreciate
well, you know what, as a journalist and a professional, you know what boundaries to push, and if you cross the line, that's up to your mind. You know if a guy got accused of rape and some bullshit stuff happened in the tour bus, don't go there.
Yeah, right.
But you can also find other shit to push his buttons too.
For sure.
Or you can go straight for the juggler, but that's usually not a good one to do. But the viewer, they deserve to get the full enchilada thing, I used to like to watch Barbara Walters, Geraldo, and really see how good of interviews they do, the ball busting interviews to pull it out. Put the widow on the set. Just think of that. We need dirty laundry. And everything's fun and dandy until you get punched in the face, and then you're like, oh shit.
True, but
you know what?
That's the nice thing of being on this side. At least I can't actually get punched through the internet.
No, you handle your business awesome, man. And I really appreciate you. That's why I opened up to you. You got me talking, and it's a good thing. And if Kelly's still listening, Kelly, let's get together. Maybe we'll do that tour with Atheist.
I will be talking to him shortly after we get off here. He's had nothing but great things to say about you. And
Kelly, he's a great dude too, man.
Kelly's
total respect.
One of my favorite people. I just love that guy so much, man. John says this interview ruled, and Tim says another mind-melting interview. Awesome history of Nasty Savage by Nasty Ronnie. Wishing for more years of success for Nasty Savage. And man, John says thanks for asking the question. That's what we do here, man. So Ronnie, hang on one sec. Thanks to everybody that was here today. If you have a chance to get out and get to Hell's Heroes, I would suggest go. It's a killer bill. A couple Tampa Bay legends there with Nasty Savage and Crimson Glory playing, which will be awesome. Is Hell Witch on that too, or no?
I don't know all the bands. There's so many of them, but every one of them are going to be good.
I could be wrong, but I know Saxon's headlining. and fuck, who else is the other headliner? That's terrible. Is it
Well,
Triptychon? It might be Triptychon or something like that. I can't remember, but yeah, man, absolutely awesome, Ronnie. Hang on one second. We're gonna end now.
okay.
Everybody go out and get the new Jeopardy Room album. I'm telling you, it's fucking great. It's a great album. It's gonna be in my top 24 of 24 by the end of 24. So
Awesome, man. Thank
anything you
you.
want to say to wrap up, Ronnie?
I just want to say thank you to the fans who get up in the morning and say, I'm going to this metal show. I'm going to that metal show. I'm going to buy this record. You know, that's what it's about. It's the passion, the guys, the girls. It doesn't matter, like I said, where you're from and what color you are. Be goodwill ambassadors, man, and give value to the people you love. And this world can be a better place if we all do our part, man. And music is a powerful thing that brings us together. Use it. Bands out there, use it. Use your politicking in the band shit to win people over to fly your flag. You know, I'm not talking politics. I'm just talking, do your thing, man, and just, you know, do the right thing. It's the time is always right to do the right thing. That's a quote from Martin Luther King.
In furtherance of that idea, Ronnie, as I said, I was at a show this Saturday for a Finnish band and a Swedish band that I'd never seen live, but they've been around for 30 years, Amorphous and Dark Tranquility. And after the show, Amorphous came out, hung out with the fans, took pictures, slapped backs, bought beers. They were the coolest guys. You cannot understand what that means to the fans, guys. Other bands watching this, it is so important, man, because it's the lasting impression you leave with your fans if you give them even just a few minutes of your time, man. You can't. That is something you cannot buy. That moment, like you said, Ronnie, where you just want to make that guy's day for a few minutes. Yeah, there can be people as fans that are a little overly enthusiastic, a little overly clingy, and a little bit like, I want to monopolize this guy. Don't be that guy, guys. Be the guy that walks up, says, thank you for this. Let me get a picture. Let me talk to you for a few minutes and move on. That's what it's all about, right?
It's all relevant to being a good person and sharing goodwill to mankind. But sometimes a band's got to make a bus call. Sometimes they really have to get back on the road. Right. Sometimes they just have deadlines and commitments. So if they say, "Hey, man, I got to go, but I'll give you whatever I can right now, but I got to haul ass,"
right.
You know, but just do your best. You know, be honest. Be honest. But sometimes don't judge bands all the time. I mean, you got to judge them for how you treat them, whatever. But just sometimes I know it's like, man, we got to go. You know, but
Yep.
So
All right,
get us earlier, you know, come
So
earlier.
much. Thanks to your wife, Debbie. Was it Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie.
Thanks to Debbie for the quick cameo. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Her 5 minutes of infamy on gas masks and hand grenades.
Yeah, she could tell you a lot of stuff.
She's got to be a saint hanging with you for 40 plus years. She's got to be amazing, I imagine.
Yeah, man. She's always supported me and you know, Born to Ride, heavy metal, Nasty Savage, and anything else I've wrestling and everything else I've done. She's always the corporate side.
I was going to say one thing I've always noted about, in particular, metal guys, most of them that are married have an incredibly cool, understanding wife. That because you know what I'm talking about. It's a crazy lifestyle to some extent, especially when you're touring regularly. You got to be very tolerant and you got to be very supportive and loving. So, you know.
Yeah, and she doesn't go to shows. She doesn't want to see it. She doesn't care. You know, she did that back in the 80s, and that was fine for her.
She's over it. Right.
Yeah, she's supportive, though. Believe me.
All right, man. We're going to roll out of here. Thank you, everybody. Real quick, tomorrow I've got Brian Ross from Satan coming on at 12:30. Brian will be talking about the new album that they just dropped about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Damn it, I forget the name of it. Something in Crimson. Sorry, forgot the name. And then also tomorrow evening, I've got Chris Heron, is a guitar player, kind of a prog, a little bit of a departure for me from the heavy metal, death metal stuff. This guy's a prog metal guy. He was with a band, or is still in a band called Tiles out of Michigan, and we're going to talk about his second solo album. So that's at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. And then I got some cool shit coming up in the next few weeks, and we'll get that out there when I have a chance. Ronnie, can't thank you enough, brother. Hang on for a minute, okay?
All right, man. Thank you, guys.
Peace out, everybody.